Good afternoon, everyone. This is such a privilege to be able to welcome you all to this session from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and even beyond East Africa. For those joining us for the first time, my name is Beatrice, and I'm the CEO of Swara AgriLogistics Solutions Ltd. And today we are talking about digital traceability and compliance. This may sound like a technical topic, but it is actually about survival and growth in the global marketplace. So, in the next 20 minutes, we will answer: what does traceability really mean in practical terms? Why 2025 and 2026 and even beyond are decisive years for exporters? How are Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania preparing? And where are these gaps? We will also ask what we will also get to learn what exactly the buyers in Europe, the Gulf, and Asia are checking at the border. And most importantly, what can we do in 90 days, for example, to be able to be market ready? At every step today, I'll also share how Swara AgriLogistics supports cooperatives, exporters, SMEs, and institutions through logistics, tools, and training. So let's begin with the foundation. What does traceability actually mean? When I say digital traceability, I'm not talking about complex systems or even just an abstract jargon that seems so hard to understand. I'm talking about basic evidence. And this is: a farmer sprays a crop, that record must be logged. A packhouse sorts fruit, the batch must be given a lot identification code, ideally a QR code or GSI barcode. A truck carries milk, the cold chain monitor must capture every degree of temperature. And at the port, a phytosanitary certificate is issued, not on the paper, but electronically through e-phyto, which we will talk about it shortly. That is traceability. It is the ability to follow produce through every stage with records that can be verified digitally. Simple. Now let me pause and ask you. If a buyer asks you today to show them your harvest logs, your lot codes, your cold chain data, and your phytosanitary certificate, could you be able to present it all consistently and instantly? Most exporters and cooperatives cannot do that, unfortunately. And that is where Swara begins to train teams to build buyer ready evidence packs that is going to be useful for export. So, why is 2025 and 2026 critical? The reason we are having this conversation now is about timing. In the European Union, the deforestation regulation has taken effect already. Coffee shipments must now include farm geolocation and due diligence. In Kenya, KS 1758 Part 2 is already being enforced. Packhouses and exporters cannot ignore pesticide logs and hygiene documentation. Across the border in Uganda, the Coffee Development Authority is registering over 2 million farmers with GPS mapping to align with EU rules. And in Tanzania, the Horticultural Association has accelerated global gap, and the Bureau of Standards is also upgrading dairy standards this year. And beyond our borders to the buyers, Saudi Arabia's Food and Drug Authority will not clear shipments without product and importer registration. Dubai's Food Watch and FIRS require digital linking of every single shipment. And across in China, They are restricting avocados to pre-registered orchards and pack houses only. And in Japan, who is also a big buyer of herbs and spices and our teas, they're introducing QR and GSI traceability for packaging. So now pause at this point and consider this. If every major destination is tightening standards at the same time, do we have even the luxury of waiting, or must we act now before the doors close? So this urgency is why Swara's procurement as a service exists. That is to help exporters and cooperatives access the right tools before the deadline to prevent rejection. So let us look at Kenya, which remains the anchor of East African horticultural exports. Here in Kenya, KS 1758 is no longer a guideline. It is now being enforced, and that means exporters must show pesticide and hygiene records, pack house loading, and cold chain evidence. Also, dairy processors must demonstrate batch level recall procedures that align with Codex and Gulf standards. For coffee exporters, they are already being asked by the buyers for farm mapping data to prove deforestation-free supply chains. And the biggest silent barrier, cold chain evidence. Too many shipments lose value not because the product was poor quality, but because no one could prove the temperature was maintained throughout the shipment. At Swara, this is where we step in. Our reefer trucks or our refrigerated trucks are not just vehicles to carry produce from point A to point B, they are also compliance tools. Each truck carries live monitoring systems that generate temperature and traceability data. Data that satisfies both inspectors and buyers. So let me ask you, what is the cost of investing in a monitored truck compared to the cost of losing an entire consignment at the port just because of missing cold chain records? Think about that. Let's move on to Uganda. In Uganda, the coffee story dominates the market. The Uganda Coffee Development Authority is rolling out a traceability system, registering millions of farmers with GPS mapping. This is very historic for Uganda. But for cooperatives, it poses a new challenge. How do you take that data and integrate it into your export documentation? Horticulture exporters are already using electronic phytosanitary certification, but many still depend on paper spray logs. Dairy processors are under pressure to upgrade labeling and batch trace systems. So here is a reflection point for those in Uganda and exporting from Uganda. What happens when Europe asks for digital evidence and all you can show is scattered notebooks and Excel files and WhatsApp notes? That's where we step in at the exact gap here. We help cooperatives and exporters move from fragmented informal record keeping to structured buyer-ready evidence packs. Let's look at Tanzania. Tanzania has also made significant progress. The Tanzania Horticultural Association has driven up global gap adoption. The government has adopted electronic phytosanitary certification, which is very good. And in 2025, new dairy standards are being enforced already. So that's good progress for our neighbors. But here is a challenge in Tanzania. Exporters are often face vendor fragmentation. One vendor offers barcodes, another offers cold chain loggers, another offers software. Costs rise, integration fails, and exporters are left with incomplete systems. So, is it sustainable to spend thousands on tools that do not even talk to each other? It doesn't make sense. So, at Swara, we provide procurement as a service for this particular reason. We identify, we source, and we integrate the right tools from trusted partners. So, exporters get solutions that actually work across the whole value chain and speak to each other. So let's look at the European Union buyer checklist. What do they look at when they are talking about digital traceability and compliance? They are looking for farm spray and harvest logs. They look for lot codes that align with pack house runs and electronic phytosanitary certificates. They look for cold chain data that proves temperature control. And for coffee, they look for farm geolocation and deforestation-free due diligence. And this is not negotiable, by the way. This is a minimum requirement for exports. And that's why at Swara we train exporters on how to compile and share these evidence packs before a shipment leaves the port. So pause and ask yourself, would you or your cooperative be ready if an EU buyer asked you for these records tomorrow? This is what you need to keep in mind during this session and even after. Moving on to the Gulf, what do Gulf buyer require for digital traceability? In the Gulf, the systems are very digital and very strict. In Saudi Arabia, for example, the Food and Drug Authority requires importer and product registration before clearance. In Dubai, Food Watch and FIRS connect every exporter, every establishment, and every shipment digitally. And dairy produce, before we go to Asia, still in Dubai, dairy products must conform to Codex and Gulf standards with batch traceability. So, do your systems match the digital systems of the Gulf states, or are you still relying on paper? Ask yourself that as we move on to Asia and look at what Asia requires for this. Asia is also very decisive. It has really improved and grown in terms of digital requirements. China only accepts avocados from orchards and pack houses that are pre-registered with General Administration of Customs of China. Japan, which is a big buyer of herbs and spices and tea from Kenya and East Africa, Japan is implementing packaging reforms requiring QR and GSI codes for traceability. And dairy exports must be backed by product specifications and batch records. So if Asia is the fastest growing food market, can we afford to be locked out because of traceability gaps? No. So at Swara, we source these QR printers, scanners, and packhouse management tools, and we also train staff to integrate them correctly. So, what are the gaps that we have or we face in Kenya and East Africa? All these gaps are familiar and they are cross-cutting. We have similar gaps throughout East Africa, and that is records are scattered across notebooks and WhatsApp. We have packhouse lot codes that do not even match phytosanitary certificates. We have improvised labeling with no standards, not following KEBS or UBS. We have coffee farmers who are not fully mapped across the countries, and our dairy processes uh, that we have without recall procedures. But you may ask yourself, if these are the common gaps, how many rejections and delays and reputational hits are we willing to absorb before we act? At Swara, we came up with 90-day roadmap to help you and your team to follow through in preparation of this digital traceability and compliance. So in the first 15 days, appoint a traceability lead, adopt a lot identification convention, and begin digital spray and harvest logs. You can begin with that. And then in the next 45 days, what you can do is link those logs with packhouse records and electronic phytosanitary certificates. Then install cold chain monitoring. For those who already have the cold chain systems, you need to have those, and align labeling with destination standards. And in the final 30 days, run a mock audit on yourself, fix the gaps, and prepare a buyer ready evidence pack. Because if a cooperative or exporter can build readiness in just 90 days, what stops us from beginning today? Luckily, at Swara, we walk with you through each of these steps with advisory, logistics, and tools. So, Swara provides three key services to walk you through this journey of export readiness. We provide trucks, we rent refrigerated trucks with monitoring that generate cold chain data, as said before. We also provide tools through our procurement of traceability systems that are sourced from trusted partners. So we work with different partners in different countries. We are majorly in Europe as well. So we work with partners in Europe depending on where you would like to source your tools and equipment from. We work with partners in Japan. We work with partners also in China and India, and also in Africa, in different parts in South Africa. We do also have partners, and we work together to make sure that we source, get the vendors, and get the equipment that is going to match what the buyer requires. We also provide training, advisory, and capacity building in export readiness, post harvest handling, value addition, and traceability. So our role is to make compliance achievable and not so overwhelming, because it can feel like really overwhelming when you haven't done, if you feel like you have not done all this. But when you take it step by step, or you work with a partner that understands the journey or has done this before, then it will be easy to take it a step at a time, as long as you strategize, you prioritize, and see what is our objective, what is our gap, and move on from there. So we do it by bridging gaps with practical, affordable, and reliable solutions. So let me conclude. From this, what we have presented today, now you know that 2025 onwards, digital traceability and compliance is your passport to international markets. Kenya is already enforcing KS 1758. Uganda is digitizing coffee traceability, and Tanzania is tightening horticulture and dairy standards. On the other side, the buyer, Europe, the Gulf, and Asia are requiring digital evidence. So the choice is yours today. Adapt now or be left out. So let me leave you with this reflection. What steps can you take this month? Not next year, this month, as we end September. Let's say in October, what steps can you take in October to begin your journey into traceability readiness? Thank you for being here. I look forward to working with many of you on your 90-day roadmap to compliance. Again, if you would like the handout that we do give after every session about just a summary of what we talked about today, just feel free to send us a message with the word handout, or send us an email and we will forward it to you free of charge. And then, oh, of course, again, we do ask you, if you have any topics that you feel like they are pressing and you would like for us to address in this our training series, feel free to send us a message or email, and we will be happy to consider it as we prepare our future training sessions. So for now, goodbye and see you in the next training session.